Hey guys, it's Anna and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be creating this very natural everyday makeup look, but I'm going to be going through every single specific makeup step. I really wanted to help you guys out there who are beginners in this whole makeup world. I feel like YouTube doesn't provide those step-by-step tutorials anymore, and that's just not fair to you guys who are learning makeup. I haven't done a natural makeup tutorial in so long on my channel, so I had to do that. I'm also testing out a few new products in this video, so you guys will know my thoughts on those. I'm sure parts of this video are going to be a bit redundant for those of you who are already really good at makeup, but I really wanted to film this for those of you guys who just wanted some tips and tricks and a little bit of help. So I really took my time to go through each step on how to get the most flawless, perfect makeup application. So yeah, if you guys want to know how I got this makeup look, see my tips and tricks, see the new products, go ahead and keep watching. So the foundation I'm going to be testing out for today is the Makeup Forever Ultra HD Stick. I've heard that this foundation is a dewy foundation, so when I use dewy foundations, I don't like to go in with super luminous hydrating primers because I find that it doesn't make the makeup last as long as I would like to throughout the day. It can make my T-zone end up looking more oily or greasy, and you don't want too much dewiness on the face, especially in the T-zone, because once it starts looking dewy and shiny here, that's when you start looking oily and greasy as opposed to glowy goddess status. So I want to get you guys to glowy goddess status. So when I reach for a more dewy foundation, I like to use more mattifying, pore filling primers, just because when you use those luminous foundations, that can exaggerate the pores a little bit, because the luminosity is like, hey, look at me, but you don't want to be like, hey, look at me and all my pores. You get what I'm saying? And as for matte foundations, that's when I like to go in with those super hydrating luminous primers, because I love to achieve makeup that looks the most like skin, as possible. And I find that those combinations just make it the best for me. So for my T-zone, I'm going to be using the Benefit Professional Primer. I don't like to put this all over my face because I do have dry skin. So I will just put this in the T-zone, and it just completely gets rid of all of your pores and mattifies that, so it's just going to last all day long. Your makeup isn't going to be going anywhere, and this just provides a really nice, smooth, even surface for the makeup to go on top of. And then for the rest of my face, I'm using the Rimmel Fix and Perfect Makeup Primer. This is not super hydrating, and it's not super matte. It's just that perfect in-between primer, so I'm just going to stick this on all of the other parts of my face and just massage that in. Then going in with that Makeup Forever foundation, I'm just gonna go ahead and stick this onto my face. And it's 10 o'clock at night right now, so I can't do a proper wear test for you guys, but I'm absolutely going to be testing this out throughout the next few days. And then just going in with this dampened Morphe sponge. So obviously you guys will be getting my first impressions on it right now, but as far as the wear time, how it lasts, is it really worth it? That's going to be in the description box. So it's blending in really nicely. The coverage is honestly really good, and as you can see, it is a dewy foundation, but it's not super wet or greasy looking at all. So this is just one layer. It looks like it has a really good solid medium full coverage, not full, but solid medium. I would say this is the most skin-like foundation I've ever used so far. This is how my skin looks throughout the day, but obviously this is covering any redness or things I want covered, but finish wise, this is what my skin looks like, just normally. So wow. So you guys know I'm all for that. I hate makeup that looks like makeup, so this is just gorgeous. I am just going to apply a little bit more in a few places just to see how it builds on top of itself. Oh yeah, already that's giving a lot more coverage. So this is a very buildable foundation, definitely medium to full coverage, and yet it looks so much like skin. I'm loving this. By the way, I'm in the shade Y225 in the foundation. I don't think I mentioned that. Moving on to concealer, I'm using the Urban Decay Naked Skin Concealer. This one is in the shade Fair Warm. So this is a pretty light concealer, so I'm just gonna go in with a little bit like that. Not anything too crazy, but it's definitely gonna brighten up the face. And then I'm just gonna take a tiny bit and add this to the center of my face, down my nose. Doing this process is going to really pull the whole nose contour and definition later when we add our contour. It just brings the brightness to the center, the contour, snatch it up. It just, you'll see. And then right on the chinny chin chin. I've been really enjoying this concealer. It has a really nice medium coverage, not drying whatsoever, very easy to blend into the skin. It's hydrating. If you have dry skin, this isn't gonna make your skin look like a desert. And I'm just lightly dabbing onto the nose because I don't wanna move this product around, but I just wanna blend it out, but still keep it down the very center of my nose. So next I'm going to go ahead and set the under eyes using this Too Faced Born This Way Ethereal Setting Powder. Haven't tried this yet, so this will be my first impressions. Before you go in with setting your makeup, you have to make sure that you're blending out these creases, otherwise you're going to be setting that all day on your face. So what I like to do is take another separate sponge. Lately I've been really enjoying applying my powder with a sponge because I find it just presses the product into your skin. It melts so much easier. It's not going to look dry on your face. It really just sinks it into the skin, presses it in. So this is a damp little Eco Tool sponge. I'm going to go ahead and dip it into this powder, have it all ready to go, making sure we have no creases. And once that's all blended out, you're just going to go ahead and start to set that down. You want to make sure that your sponge is not soaking wet, otherwise the powder is going to come on like chunks onto your face. So when you're dampening your sponge, use the smallest bit of water. It's just to make sure your sponge isn't stiff. And then if you have any places on your face where you tend to crease, go ahead and blend that out and set that down as well. So I have smile lines, so we're going to go ahead and press that into the skin. You want to make sure you're not like blending the powder, but just pressing it in, really getting it into that foundation. And then with the big fluffy powder brush, we're just going to go ahead and dust away that powder just so we don't disturb any of the makeup on underneath. I'm honestly really impressed with that Too Faced powder. It looks beautiful underneath the eyes. It doesn't make them look dried out at all. It's just a very beautiful, like soft matte finish, so I'm really liking it so far. Then going in to set the rest of my face, I'm going to be using the Body Shop All-in-One Face Base. This is in the shade 04. It's important to set your face if you're going to be using powder products on top of your foundation, but of course you don't need to set your face if you're using a powder foundation. Basically, you just don't want to mix powders and liquids because they're not going to mix well at all. Your face is going to look patchy. It's just going to look like a hot mess. But of course, if you're going to be going in with a cream bronzer, highlighter, blush, that sort of stuff, you're going to want to hold off to set that until you're all done. And setting your face is just going to prolong the wear of your makeup. To contour, out of the Tarte's Pro Glow palette, I'm going to go ahead and pick up the shade Sculpt right down here. You want to pick up a contour shade that's not going to be warm toned because you're going to be mimicking a shadow. So if you look at my face, you can see the natural shadow right over here as I turn my head because of my cheekbones popping up. So what you want to do is really emphasize your cheekbones, make you look like Angelina Jolie, you know what I'm saying? So the reason why you want to pick a cool toned shade is because you are creating your own shadow, but you don't want it to look gray because then it's just going to look like mud, dirt on your face. You don't want that either. So what I like to do, go ahead and tap off the excess. Going in with a light hand is better than going in too heavy. And this is where my natural shadow is, but I want to have super lifted cheekbones, so I'm just gonna go slightly above, ever so slightly, just to do something a little extra for me. So if it helps, you can do the little fish face. And just like that, we already have a way more defined sculpted cheekbone. And then for my bronzer, I'm going to be taking this Too Faced Sweethearts bronzer. This is in the shade Sweet Tea. I'm going to be just mixing these two colors. This is a very naturally glowy bronzer, not anything too over the top at all. And what I like to do is start at the temples and start to blend in the bronzer with the contour, so it all just looks very seamless and natural. And then I just gradually work my way up. You want to make sure this is blended into the hairline. And I don't like to go heavy whatsoever in the very center of my face, because you don't want to have all this brightness that we created and then like bam, all this bronzer right here. So I like to bring the excess up in the middle and then the heavier parts around the sides right here. And then I'll go right above my contour. As you can see, my contour is right here. I'm just gonna go right above that and apply bronzer just to add warmth on the cheekbones as well. And you don't want just bronze right here, so we're gonna go ahead and kind of go in like a 3 shape. So we're just gonna connect it right here, add some to the jawbone, make that pop a bit more, and then you're gonna wanna bring that down to your neck, because I see this all the time, you guys, where girls will have a super defined jawbone and you can just fully see the bronze and the contour, and then there's nothing down their neck and you just see this like brown mark. So you want to make sure you're bringing it down, blending it all together. Same thing with your foundation. You want to blend that down, because even if you have like the perfect foundation shade, it's not your skin. So you want to make sure that you're just blend. And then with this brush right here, I already dipped into that Sculpt contour shade, and then I'm just going to be running this down the sides of my nose, and this is just going to make my nose look a bit more thin and narrow. I don't like to do anything over the top, like I'm not super self-conscious about my nose, but I do like to have it just a little bit more defined. So as you can see, running this down the sides of my nose again creates that shadow right here, and the brightness with the concealer right here makes this look like the width of your nose. And these are your shadows because they're showing off the sides of your nose, and because they're closer together, it makes your nose look narrower. So if you did want an even more defined, sharper nose contour, you're going to want to go in with a more thin, more precise brush, and then make sure, of course, that you're blending that out, because you don't want to have like 2 brown lines down in the middle of your nose. And this next tip that I have for you guys is huge. This truly changed my makeup game. Taking a big fluffy like powder brush and just going over your bronzer, making sure you have no harsh lines whatsoever. Say you went a little bit crazy with the contour, whatever, this just diffuses that bronzer and makes it look the most airbrushed, natural, like truly just like from the sun bronze. It doesn't look like makeup at all. So if you guys go a little bit too heavy or it just looks a little bit too harsh, go in with a big fluffy brush, go over it. I promise you, it's gold. Also, even if you guys decide not to contour your nose, make sure you're at least grabbing just a little bit of bronzer, something like that, to the center of your face right here. Otherwise, it just looks strange. You're gonna look like so highlighted and ghostly all in the center of your face, and then bronze here. Having a bit of that bronze down the middle of your face just ties everything together. And if you guys bring your contour or bronzer a little bit too far down, you can go ahead and grab like a loose powder or even like a pressed powder and use your sponge or a brush, something like that, and just carve that out. Let it sit on your face for a minute or so, brush it off, you're good to go. Next, going in with blush, this is the Tarte Amazonian Clay blush in the shade Seduce. And with blush, you don't want to look like a full-on doll, so you don't want to pack the blush just on the apples of your cheeks. What I like to do is start on the apples of my cheeks, gently dab, and then bring it back to meet up with that bronzer and contour just a hair above that bronze, and that just makes the look way more realistic, because when you have rosy cheeks, your cheeks don't just look rosy right here. It's really all the way back here. Doing that just gives it the most natural blush effect. And this gentle tapping motion just makes sure we don't go overboard. I'm also tapping off the excess on my brush. I don't like to go ham with blush just because it looks just a little bit too alarming in my opinion, but a little bit just adds so much color and youthfulness back into the face. For my highlighter, I'm using this Essence Pure Nude Highlighter. This is a very natural, beautiful highlight that you can absolutely build up. And for my brush, I always use the Morphe M501 brush. When you're highlighting, you want to make sure that you're not having a giant, super thick stripe of highlight on your face, because you just want to highlight the very tops of your cheekbones, because then when it catches that in the light, it just makes your cheekbones look so much more like bam, bam. If you bring your highlight down too far, your cheekbones just aren't gonna look as sculpted, as like popping out. It's just not gonna look quite right. So you just wanna top it off at the very top. So you wanna make sure you're grabbing a brush that's not too thick or too dense. Otherwise, it's just gonna look like a full-on stripe on your face. Start small and then you can go ahead and build it up as you like. And I like to bring just a little bit forward, so then when I'm looking forward, there's just a little bit of that glow that you can still see. And I'm not going in straight up like back and forth line motions. I am doing just a little bit of circular motions, not anything crazy, but I'm just very lightly dusting it onto the face. And the excess product I like to bring up a little bit just to blend it in better with the skin, so again it's not looking like a straight up line on the face. Also, I just want to warn you guys, because I have definitely made this mistake before, if you are cream highlighting, make sure that you avoid like this little section right here where your eye bags are, because if you get cream liquid highlighter in this section, you are illuminating your eye bags. So just be careful, make sure you're avoiding this dip right here, because as you can see, you know, this section right here is a little bit more indented than right here. So just be careful. You don't want to illuminate that. Don't want to draw attention to that. I got you. Then I'm just highlighting the very tip of my nose and right down the middle. And then I'm just adding some to the Cupid's bow as well. This is just gonna make our lips look a little bit more juicy in the end. Moving on to brows, I never show you guys this because I end up just always doing the same thing in every single video, but I'm gonna do it for you guys today. So for my brows, I take this Brow Gal by Tanya Crooks. This is the convertible brow in the shade 02. And I like to use this middle shade right here. It's just the perfect shade. And then I use this angled brush right here, also has a spoolie. I always kind of run through my hairs just like super briefly, nothing crazy, just to make sure the brows are somewhat in place. I'll go ahead and dip into that shade, tap off a bit of excess, and I kind of start in the middle of the brows and I just kind of go, start sculpting them out where my natural brow hairs grow. Then once I filled in the top portion of my brows, I go ahead and do the tail. So what I do next is a very short, quick, like flicking motion to create the tail. You don't want to put all this pressure on the tail. You just want to have it very elongated, fast, sharp. You know what I mean? And then I'll go ahead and start to map out the bottom part of my brows. This part I have to do a little bit of filling in because my brow hairs are a bit more sparse over here because I plucked them when I was in high school and middle school, so they're currently growing out, so I kind of have to bring it a little bit lower than where they normally grow. So right at the root of where those new brow hairs are growing, and then I start to fill in the brows as well. Then I'm just taking the excess product that's on my brush and bringing that forward. You don't want a lot of product up front at all because you want this to look more diffuse. So with a very light hand, I'm just adding some product up front. And if it's looking a little bit too boxy, you can go ahead and take a spoolie or like a fluffy, clean eyeshadow brush and just kind of comb through the very beginning of your brows, and that just makes it look all better. And then just to set everything in place and make the brows look like super hairy and natural, I like to take this Benefit Gimme Brow. It's a tinted brow gel. This is in the shade 1. And with this, I like to push up my brow hairs. And it makes them look way more bushy, and this just keeps the hairs up all day long. All right, so bringing you guys real up close, we're gonna be doing the eye look. So for the eyeshadow, I'm gonna be dipping into the Urban Decay Naked 3 palette. We're gonna be doing a really pretty, girly, everyday makeup look. So the first shade I'm gonna pick up is the shade Limit. Generally, it's a good idea to put a matte in your crease because you can add as much shimmer as you like onto the lid, and then just everything blends in so much more seamless when you have a matte shade. Like anything goes with matte, but not everything goes with shimmer. And then the shimmer will really accentuate that crease and kind of bring it forward, make it shiny, make it more texturized. You want to have that crease nice and matte. And it's also generally a good idea not to go with like super bam crazy colors right away into the crease because you want to have a transition shade. It's literally why it's called transition shade. So then you can add those crazy bam colors but you need the transition first, because if you just add, say, like a blue straight up in your crease, a blue doesn't blend well into your skin tone, and having a transition shade that's, say, like a nice neutral brown, like a muted pink, like a mustardy yellowy orange, something like that, those colors will just blend a lot better into skin tones, and those colors basically give you free range with any other color you want to use after that. So there you go. So using a fluffy brush, you don't want anything too dense into your crease because you want a nice airbrushed look. You don't want to pack on color right away. So then I'm just going to go ahead and apply this into my crease. I like to use back and forth motions to bring the product, you know, from the left to the right. And then I also like to blow it out in circles, which just diffuses the color more. And personally, I like to wing out my eyeshadow just a little bit. I don't like the full-on like domed look, so that's just personal preference though. Also depends on your eye shape. So next I'm gonna go ahead and pick up the shade Nooner. Make sure you're tapping off the excess. You don't want to go in with full-on pigment. Always easier to build than to erase. So this next brush I'm using is still fluffy, but it is a bit more precise than the last brush I used. And this is gonna go straight in the crease. That transition shade was kind of blown out, still above the crease. This is going to go directly in the crease. So with the light hand, this is just going to be adding a little bit more dimension to the eye, and this is going to start very slightly, giving you like the most subtle everyday like smoky eye. It's really not a smoky eye, but it does add more dimension to your eyes. And I'm going to pop a little bit of this kind of in the outer V. Also note that I'm not going to be bringing this color all the way into my inner corner crease because I really want to have this section of my eyes like super bright and awake. And then if you need to go over any places just to make it look even more blended, just go ahead and grab another clean, fluffy blending brush and just go on over that. Then I'm going to be picking up the shade Dust, and I'm just going to go ahead and use the brush that already comes in the palette because why the heck not? This is the fluffier side. I'm not getting the pigment that I want just dry, so take any setting spray that you have, or even water works. Go ahead and spray your brush and then apply the shadow and check it out. Is there a difference or what? What did I tell you? And just to add like the slightest bit of dimension of pinks, we're gonna go ahead and take the shade Buzz. And this is gonna go right next to that lighter pink. And this is gonna be basically like the transition between this light pink and the outer corner. So as you can see, I still left the outer corner matte and definitely a bit deeper than the other shades. And then we just go gradually lighter and more shimmery as we go in. And that's just gonna pull like all the attention to the eyes. Then I'm picking up the shade Nooner, and this is going to be smoked underneath the lower lash line. I like to connect that to meet with this just so it all ties in together with the shadow that was blown out up here. Then taking the shade Dust again, I'm just popping this in the inner corners. I like to pop some right underneath that arch, underneath the brows. And then I'll kind of blow it out, but I'll concentrate the most right over here. Alright, so I've just applied some liner and mascara. I'm sure you guys know how to do that. So the liner that I use is the Rimmel Scandalized Waterproof Liner in the shade Nude. I've been obsessed with doing this, popping in a nude liner in the waterline. It just makes your eyes look way more awake, and it draws a lot more attention to them. I just think it looks beautiful. And then for the mascara, it's just a little baby Too Faced Better Than Sex. I did apply some lip liner because we're going to be putting on a gloss. This is the ColourPop Ultra Glossy Lip in the shade Fairy Floss. I wanted a very light wash of baby pink on the lips just to tie in with the eye makeup, but for a base, just to add like a little bit of something, I wanted a little bit of a lip liner. So this is the Essence in the Nude Lip Liner. Like, ugh, this color is so pretty. And for the last step of my makeup process, I'm using the Urban Decay Chill Makeup Setting Spray. While it's still wet, I'll go ahead and take my sponge and gently tap this into my face. But I do avoid the highlight area because I find that when I tap that, it kind of taps away the highlight. But this is just really soaking in that setting spray and getting rid of any powdery look on your face. Alright, you guys, so that is it. This is the finished makeup look. I am really hoping this was helpful for some of you guys. Please let me know if it was. That would mean so much to me. If you enjoyed and you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my channel down below. I hope you guys are all having a fantastic day, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!